jet with 60 passengers and 4 crew members collided with an Army helicopter, a Black Hawk, from what I understand, while approaching the Ronald Reagan National Airport near Washington, D.C., sending the 2 aircraft plummeting into the Potomac River and killing everyone on board. It's actually a massive tragedy considering that the jet with the 60 passengers was basically about to land, right? The Army helicopter was flying without the Army helicopter basically flew into the plane from the videos that I've seen, right? And it's pretty gruesome. I'm going to show you this right now from the New York Times. You can see it right here. The moment that the 2 aircraft collided. Here, it's going to loop back again. Look at that. You can barely see the helicopter. It seems like the helicopter did not have the proper it seems like the helicopter did not have like the proper designation for flying, where you're just like constantly supposed to blast out to air traffic control that you're flying. The helicopter was warned about the plane, but they were looking at the wrong plane at the time. Air clearance, yeah. ADSB, thank you. A lot of aviation heads in the chat. I don't know the exact details. I can't remember the exact names. Anyway, the collision occurred at around 9 p.m. Wednesday in one of the world's most tightly controlled airspaces. This is Washington, D.C. This is the capital of the United States of America. There are flights happening all the time, in and out, and also there are a lot of helicopters flying around. It was just over 3 miles south of the White House and the U.S. Capitol. A search and rescue effort launched overnight and turned into a recovery operation by mid-Thursday morning, unfortunately. There were some details. Number one, the collision involved a regional jet out of Wichita, Kansas, that was preparing to land, and a military helicopter that was doing a training exercise, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. A few minutes before the jet was to land, air traffic controllers asked American Airlines Flight 5342 if it could do so on a shorter runway, and the pilots agreed. Okay. Controllers cleared the jet to land, and flight tracking sites showed the plane adjust its approach to the new runway. Less than 30 seconds before the collision, an air traffic controller asked the helicopter if it had the arriving plane in sight. The controller made another radio call to the helicopter moments later. Pat 25 passed behind the CRJ, apparently telling the copter to wait for the Bombardier CRJ 701 twin jet engine to pass. There was no reply, and the aircraft collided seconds later. The plane's radio transponder stopped transmitting about 2,400 feet short of the runway, roughly over the middle of the Potomac. The body of the plane was found upside down in 3 sections in waist-deep water, officials said. The helicopter's wreckage was also found in the river. NTSB officials said they were working to recover the data recording equipment from both aircraft. Now, there are a lot of issues here, and there are a lot of systemic factors in play. TMZ actually went and got the air traffic control audio, which is kind of crazy to think about. Here it is. Crazy that it's TMZ that actually acquired the audio, but here it is.
I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach in the 33. 6342. That's a Wilsonbury tank confirmed for runway 33. Runway 33 clear for land.
Did you see that?
Oh, that's public and AP got it first for what it's worth? Oh, okay.
American 3130, go around, turn left end 250, climb maintain 3000. Blackjack 3, can you return to base? Blackjack 3, proceed direct.
Yeah, sorry for the spam, but I'm an amateur pilot. No media anywhere is stating that the U.S. military just killed 60 or so people, and everyone is focusing on the FAA staffing when the 3 people on the heli should have seen that shit seen the shit out of the plane. Yeah, No, this is entirely. There are still systemic factors at play. I think the FAA firings or the FAA downsizing is a major problem here. I think that plays a role for sure. But yeah, it's entirely the military's fault here for sure. They did it on purpose. Uh-oh. I suspect that this is going to draw a lot of conspiratorial minded people. The question we must ask ourselves and everyone else is, why would the American military assassinate 60 American citizens in the most public spectacle you have seen? What is the purpose? I cannot wait for the actual people that were on the flight, so that people can continue doing more conspiracy theories saying that, like, this accountant that was on the plane was actually investigating Jeffrey Epstein or something, and that's the reason why they did that. When in fact, here is CNN revealing one air traffic controller was working 2 different tower positions at the time of the mid-air collision near Washington, D.C., an air traffic control source tells CNN. But before we do that, before we get to all the additional details, now that I've given you what we know so far, before we investigate the crash in and of itself, let's hear what Donald Trump had to say, because he held a press briefing on the aviation disaster. I haven't seen this yet, but let me suspect something. Okay, I'm going to be speculating on something that took place already. I'm assuming that DEI will be mentioned. Let's take a look. Isn't it awesome that there's just something that you can always blame when your decisions, like when your administrative decisions could directly lead to these issues? You can always turn around and just be like, nah, it's the fact that black people may or may not have been working the job. Great stuff, man. It's always a fantastic, super easy way to deflect the blame. Trump signs an order blaming Biden and DEI for flight dangers. No. This can't be real. Like, I mean, this is, I'm sure this is real. Of course it's real. That's very Trump. But like, there's no way people actually believe this, right? Like I think stuff like this is going to lead to diminished results, right? Because you can't constantly say, oh, this is a consequence of woke. This is a consequence of DEI. This is a consequence of woke DEI over and over again, and then expect people to go, yeah, that's right. That is probably what it is. Like, there's no, okay, I'm calling it now. I think they're exhausting it too much. They're hitting the woke. You have no idea what's coming, Unc. No, I think the average person is going to be like, all right, dude, come on.
Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect, and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that...
Like, I'll give you a direct example, okay? Egg prices are supposed to go down. They don't go down. They get more expensive, right? Let's say egg prices get more expensive, okay? You can't just keep saying it's DEI. At a certain point, people are going to be like, but you're the fucking president. Do you understand what I mean? Some people will turn around and say, oh, well, egg prices aren't going down because it's like has nothing to do with the president whatsoever. I just realized that, even though I didn't realize it under the Biden administration. But like, people will still experience the harm and will go, okay, well, my president's not doing anything. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can blame DEI over and over and over again, and it'll be effective for many people. Okay, it'll be effective for a lot of people. I'm sure Asmongold's community is like, hell yeah, even though it was a straight white airplane pilot, straight white helicopter pilot, straight white air traffic controller, straight white FAA administrator fired by straight white president and straight white billionaires or whatever. Ultimately, it's actually the fault of woke, right? Like, that some people in Asmongold's community probably fucking eat this up. My point is, some people. I don't even think all people in Asmongold's community will eat this up. Do you see what I'm saying? Because, like, it's too much. It's too much. Like, there's not a single, like, black or brown person involved in it, which most people don't give a shit about, right? But, like, but also outside of that, it's like, come on, dude, you literally say this about everything.
And other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our higher standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be.
Yo, this is, okay. That's crazy. Yo, this is straight up. Yo, this is actually, like, remember, the Nazis also hated the disabled too. Like, that's crazy. They actually unironically are just like, yo, if you have any disability whatsoever, fuck you. Like, what? That's crazy. Yo, what is happening? Also, I feel like Donald Trump is kind of disabled himself. You know what I mean? Like, what's he talking about? But to be fair, I guess Hitler didn't also subscribe to the Ubermensch in the way that he looked either. And Ben Shapiro is not exactly a beacon of masculinity. These guys don't really care about that. These guys don't even care about being a part of the in-group. They just believe that if they say the right things, they'll be a part of the in-group. Trump's previous FAA was hiring qualified people with disability as well. Trump has made clear he has less than zero evidence that the FAA's hiring people with disabilities contributed to yesterday's crash, so this whole conversation is a non sequitur. But since he has started the conversation, some facts. The same FAA website language Trump blasted today by hiring people with intellectual and psychiatric disabilities and other significant targeted disabilities was on the FAA website throughout his first presidency. In addition to FAA, under Trump, launched and repeatedly promoted a pilot program to hire capable, qualified people with targeted disabilities in air traffic control positions. The Department of Transportation has pushed, at least since the W. Bush administration, to hire more people with targeted disabilities, and the FAA repeatedly said during Trump's first term that it had continued to do so, emphasizing, as it did under Biden, that they have to meet the qualifications for the posts. The January 14th Fox News article Trump cited today as evidence of a last-minute Biden FAA diversity hiring push right before the Trump came back into office. It was actually published a year ago, January 14th, 2024. Again, it was criticizing the same language that had been on the FAA website since at least 2013. I'm mostly staying off the site because gestures broadly at the site, but come on now. Alexander, the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under the Biden administration is demonstrably false.
Implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's
Who said
website.
That, you?
No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration
Nice and
too.
easy.
So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
I did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in, and he changed it. And then when I came in 3 days ago, I signed a new order, bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It was on the website.
Bro, does he think the executive orders are like God speaking? Like, do you think, does he think that executive orders have like magical powers? Yeah, dude, when you do a messaging bill, like a messaging executive order, it doesn't really change anything at all. Like the spending freeze was, that was consequential. But if you're like, we're going to eliminate DEI from air traffic control, like they're not going to fucking move to instantly fire every single air traffic controller that like is in a wheelchair, you know? I mean, dude, this is just straightforward bad management. And in times like this, unfortunately, when it's far too late to recognize, some people will find out exactly what the government does, right? Some people will, albeit when it's far too late, find out that these sorts of issues, these sorts of moves, these jobs that are otherwise invisible are actually very important in maintaining safety. When you have the proper tools at the FAA, when you have air traffic control working, it's invisible. Okay? It's invisible. So you don't even think about it. You only think about it. You only think about the ATC being understaffed when it no longer is invisible. I read, I mean, there are reports on this stuff that the air traffic control in the United States of America has significant understaffing. It is the same principle at virtually every job site at this point. Virtually every industry, every sector demands more labor participation, higher percentages, and higher numbers in the workforce. And yet our cost cutting demands that people operate more efficiently. And that efficiency is going to lead to a lot of issues. That efficiency is going to cause problems, okay? Efficiency at the hospital implies that your emergency room nurse is having to take care of more than 5 patients, which is supposed to be the norm. 4 patients is supposed to be the max, right? Efficiency implies your nurse is now taking care of 10 patients, 20 patients, and you cannot give proper medical care to 20 people when on your 12-hour shift, the maximum amount of people that you're supposed to be taking care of is 4 people. But hey, guess what? That's a good cost-cutting initiative, right? It's better for the bottom line of the hospital, but it's actually lower quality care overall. It's also less safe overall. You do not want your grandparents or your loved ones to be taking care of someone who unfortunately does not have the proper bandwidth, the proper time, the space to take care of them, right? That is a great example of understaffing leading to worse results and less safety overall. It's not like the nurses are worse. It's just they're taking on so much more. And the same goes for the ATC. An FAA employee I know confirms the agency already lacks sufficient air traffic controllers. This is hours before the crash, by the way. The so-called buyouts and other attacks on federal employees won't help. Remember that fact when flight delays, crashes commence, and Trumpers start falsely blaming DEI or Biden. And then it's like the Washington Times. FAA turned away qualified air traffic controllers based solely on race. From the editorial board of the Washington Times. Like, That is literally an editorial piece from the Washington Times. It's no different than just like making up your own headline and then posting that as quote unquote proof. It's so goddamn stupid, man. That's the level of care and attention we have to proper media coverage nowadays. It's just like, hey, I saw this article headline that agrees with me. Look at it. It's like, did you read the article? Did you look at did you look at the outlet? Are you familiar with the outlet whatsoever? Like, is it an editorial op-ed? Like, is it an editorial piece? Is it actually objective news reporting? Dude, everything. Like, 9/11 happens in the United States of America, and our leaders immediately use that as an opportunity to go to war with like all these countries in the Middle East, resource-rich nations that we want to invade. Tragedy happens under the Trump administration, and they're like, well, this actually is because we didn't melt the disabled. Far too many black people that have been hired for these positions. Like, it's crazy. Not to say that like one is better than the other, okay? Make no mistake. Moments of crisis create moments of opportunity for all administrations, okay? It's just crazy that like the scope has narrowed in spectacular fashion.
So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed. And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because of the direction that the helicopter was coming in at. So you had a confluence of bad decisions that were made. And you have people that lost their lives, violently lost their lives. We're going to take a few questions. I'd like to ask our new Secretary of Transportation to say a few words. Sean Duffy, great gentleman, just started. It's not your fault, and I know you agree with me very strongly on intellect and even psychological well-being of the air traffic control. It's such an important position, and I think I can't emphasize stronger. I changed it when I first ran in 2016. I changed it. We had the highest standard that you could have, and then they changed it back. That was Biden to a standard I read it to you. That was from one of your papers. One of the people in this room actually wrote that. And then I changed it back a few days ago. And unfortunately, that was, we'll see. We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault. But one thing we do know, there was a lot of vision, and people should have been able to see that, you know, at what point do you stop? At what point do you say, wow, that plane's getting a little bit close? So this is a tragedy that should not have happened. Please, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would just note the President's leadership has been remarkable during this crisis. We've had a whole of government response, local, state.
Trump's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy also just sent a memo directing staff to eliminate any rule, document, or policy from the past 4 years that relate in any way to climate change and greenhouse gas. Transportation is the biggest greenhouse gas emitting sector in the U.S. Trump's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy just sent out a memo directing staff to give preference to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. Wait, what? What? To the extent practicable, relevant, appropriate, and consistent with law, mitigate the unique impacts of DOT programs, policies, and activities. What? Huh? On families and family-specific difficulties such as accessibility of transportation to families with young children, give preference to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average, including administering the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Investment Grant Program. I don't understand. Is it like DEI without saying DEI? Aren't communities with a higher birth rates above the national average literally like minority communities? Are they just like trying to sneak in DEI or something without... What is happening? Sent to me from a pilot. Beginning on Saturday, February 1st, San Carlos Federal Contract Tower will be understaffed. ATC 0. Oh, great. That's cool. That seems like a good... Wait. Unstaffed? Wait. My brain refused to read it correctly. Wait, what? Unstaffed? What? Dude, I swear to God, my brain didn't read it. My brain was like, oh, understaffed. Great. Like my brain was like, no. ATC 0 is usually a thing at small airports. This morning, we were informed by FAA headquarters that the SQL tower will be unstaffed. ATC 0. Starting Saturday, February 1st. The FAA has awarded a new contract for air traffic services SQL to Robinson Aviation. However, the contract does not include locality pay to account for the high cost of living in the San Francisco Bay Area. As a result, RVA's employment offers to current SQL controllers were significantly lower than their current compensation under Serco. Understandably, all current controllers have declined RVA's offers. Our controllers' last day at SQL will be Friday, January 31st. If you have the chance, please thank them for their excellent service they provided the SQL for the past year. We requested temporary FAA staffing for the tower solution currently being implemented at Eagle Airport in Colorado during its transition from Serco to RVA. However, the FAA informed us this morning that they will not provide temporary personnel for SQL. Key airport, a long approach to SFO to lose all air traffic controllers this week. So this is a tiny airport, right? And you might think, well, it's just a tiny airport. Who cares? Like, there's plenty of tiny airports that just go unstaffed from time to time. But isn't this near a major airport? There's still obviously like a network of... I mean, there's obviously still planes that are flying in the sky above and near this area, especially when they're approaching a major airport. And therefore, I see this being... Tipster is a private pilot, not for an airline. I'm a pilot. I received this email from an airport manager about the issue that's been growing problem for the years in the Bay Area, and is now growing even worse. San Carlos Airport is an airport within 10 miles of San Francisco International Airport, and will have no traffic controller starting February 1st. Oh, shit. Something that is often talked about, obviously, but it bears repeating in this process, that I find particularly strange, is the reality that someone like Pete Hegseth talking about DEI standards and unqualified people being hired for positions within the government is so insane. It's like, bro, do you hear yourself? Like, are you okay? Like, what are you then? Like, what do you mean? Oh, we need superior hiring practices, I say, as I am a guy who straight up unqualified for the position. Like, the Trump administration across the board has hired some of the least competent people I have seen for key positions. Okay? Like, what the fuck do you mean? It makes no sense to me. I mean, it does make sense, obviously, because they have one quality that clearly transcends all others in terms of importance, which is that they are telegenic and white. How are you getting home, King? I mean, I don't know. It's going to be difficult. It's getting more difficult by the day. He does look like Dick Cheney, the guy who's rubbing his hands. You're right. Sean Duffy is literally an MTV reality TV show, Andy. It's insane. Is it insane, or is it just, you know, how things are in the United States of America? Have you seen the Femme Shapiro video yet? No. More like, why are you coming home, King? Because it's my obligation, you know? It's my job. I got to do it.